Good morning, everybody. Thank you. Life does come a full circle. 22 years ago, when I was doing my MBA in IT, we, in our common library, used to go and read DataQuest. DataQuest probably was the only magazine that was covering IT news then, development, etc., etc. 2016, I was fortunate to be covered in DataQuest for one article. And I always look forward saying one day, probably one day, I might be part of a panel, moderate something, etc., etc. And yesterday, actually, God was very kind. I got a call and, that I will speak after Jaspreet Bindra. That's another problem that I have. Wherever I go, fortunately for me, people confuse between Jaspreet Bindra and me because of the name. But that's superb. We both work in cyber AI. Any news is good news. But Pradeep sir, thank you so much. I think I'm seeing you after 20 years. I don't know if you remember, you had done a guest lecture in our college in Symbiosis on the changing face of IT, 2002, January, February types. Thank you, Cyber Media. It's really a privilege to be standing here today talking about how the world is changing. And first of all, I think all of you should give yourselves a huge round of applause for being the change agents for the country. And I will talk about that, right? When you are 23 years old, you pass out, or you're studying in an MBA college, that too specializing in IT, you actually only want to become a CIO, right? 22 years only doing consulting, I can tell you, the last job that I want to do is of a CIO. And in 5 minutes, you will see why. But if you ask me today, two positions in an organization that will propel us to the Viksit Bharat that our Honorable Prime Minister is talking about, one is definitely the CIO. So what's happening today from a CIO world perspective, right? Every 10 seconds, somebody is making a new enterprise app. CIO has to integrate it, look after security, etc. We'll talk about that. Every conference you go to, every meeting you go to, people will talk about AI, people will talk about cloud. I was last year, I was teaching my daughter who's in class 5th, saying there are 3 states of matter. Right? 3 states of matter, solid, liquid, gas. About a week ago, I pick up the newspaper and I see that Microsoft is now talking about a 4th state of matter. And who's responsible in this entire quantum journey? Again, fortunately, CIO. So from being somebody who sits in a room in the corner office, dabbles with technology which nobody understands, today to be probably at the driver's seat within the organization in terms of taking business decisions hand in hand, understanding what technology will do to the business and not vice versa, is how the entire role has evolved. I tried putting some points on the way technology will change, right? Quantum, augmented reality, drones. Sir spoke about AI being around for 20 years. Similarly, if somebody can tell me, when was GPS as a technology discovered? GPS as a technology? 1996? So that's the commercial use. 1950s, at least that's what Google Baba tells me. That 1950s, GPS as a technology was invented. When did we start using it? 1996. Post that, when Google Maps of this world make it commercial. It took us 40 years to adapt a technology then. ChatGPT has been around for 2.5 years. Everybody in this room would be using one form of ChatGPT or the other. Agreed? How many people use ChatGPT? See, I see people raising 2 hands. I wish I had more I could have raised. I can't do my work without ChatGPT now, right? And as I said, every meeting you go to now, people are also talking about quantum. That will shift the way the entire cyber security landscape will evolve from a country perspective, but we'll talk about that. And what are we doing, right? As I'm speaking, standing on stage, I've already covered about 2 minutes. There are 500,000 Facebook posts, Insta posts gone live. People are talking about bringing your own devices. Till about 6 years ago, companies used to hire me, say, please write my bring your own devices policy. Not anymore, because everybody is not only bringing your own devices, you are also bringing your own apps. And how much time does it take to develop an app? How much time does it take to develop an app and put it on Google Play Store? Any guesses? 7 minutes. Thank you. And who has to integrate that app if that app is worthy? The CIO. Hence, I don't want the role of the CIO. So, this is how the fundamental shift is happening that we were talking about from a CIO perspective. From being IT managed by business to the entire shift of IT driving business. Pick up any technology. Pick up any technology as basic as a enterprise resource planning application and ERP. Today, how many modules to implement, which modules, whether it has to be cloud, on-prem, whatever. Every decision is being taken by the CIO for the business. Gone are the days when you would get an RFP, one ERP was selected and it was being handed over to the CIO, saying, please go and implement these 2 modules. What to implement, what kind of role-based access should be there, do you give access to people on mobiles, what about cloud, what about computing power, add AI on top of all of this. And suddenly you will say that it's become a very, very complex world out there, right? Any organization today, right, and we're talking about the AI boom that the country is going through, right? And we've got various missions, we'll talk about some of them in India. The India AI mission. How many companies have registered for the India AI mission? How many organizations? It's about just a year and a half old. Almost 2,000 companies. These are the companies that are putting the neck out there and saying that our business will only be driven by AI. And that's a fact, right? Like there's a saying, there are only 2 types of companies in the world. One that have been hacked and the others who don't know that they have been hacked. I am pretty similar that in 18 months, and I hope I am proven wrong, every company will use AI. And they have to. Otherwise, it will come down to the basic fundamental on which business is run, which is the cost of doing business. And you won't be able to survive in this competitive world. So I thought, let's try and put a mind map in place on what are the 6 tools that a CIO today would need to evolve in the entire, AI era. Obviously, technology is at the forefront, but with technology comes strategy. Why do I need AI for? Is there a use for which I am implementing AI, or just because I have gone to meetings where the board has told me that my competitor has already launched an AI product. Can I do something on AI? Right? Am I only doing it for the sake of doing it, or do I actually see there is a business use case for it? There is a strategy for it. On the backdrop of all of this comes the most important piece, data. Where is my data? Do I have a data lake? Is it on-prem? Is it on cloud? How do I manage it? Government has just introduced the rules for DPDPA, right? Our in-house, in-country privacy bill, very similar to GDPR. If you don't comply to it, again, cost of doing business. Pick up any newspaper, and I challenge you, pick up any newspaper once in at least 3 days. You will see a company facing a cyber attack. And unfortunately, fortunately, that becomes a headlines. And would you trust that company ever again? Ever again. Suppose there's a bank whose data has been breached, right? You walk across the bank's ATM, believe you me, it's human psyche, you will still have a doubt when you go and enter your debit card, credit card to take out money. So it's also becoming huge reputational issue, right? Sourcing, again, huge. Looking at those 700, 800 pages of large MSAs, how do CIOs look at that from an AI perspective? Do we have an AI engine where you feed all the contract and it tells you read only these 4 clauses? The last piece is the entire organization. How does this all come together, right? And what are the 4 pillars of IT? What I've done is XY axis. X axis talks about what is the pace of change. Y axis talks about supported business strategy. But if you see the one in gray, IT is the new capability enabler for an organization. And that is the power of AI. You can't talk about AI and not worry about cyber attacks, right? My honorable friend just spoke about DeepSeek, and we are very worried that if we upload our data on DeepSeek, it goes to a foreign country. But what we don't know is that ChatGPT is also a foreign country. Anything today that you upload on anywhere goes everywhere, right? And people used to talk about data being the new oil. I'll say it's probably even more dangerous than having an oil rig today. Because unfortunately, and probably these are the smartest people in the country today sitting here, right? How many of us walk into a hotel and what is the first thing that we do when we check in? What is the first thing that we do? We connect to the Wi-Fi, right? Nowadays, even before asking for the room number, we ask, do you have Wi-Fi? And any CIO from the hospitality industry here will tell you that whatever you do on that Wi-Fi, they record everything. They have a judicial regulatory requirement to keep everything for 6 months. Whatever you browse there. And imagine the brightest mind sitting here, walking into a hotel room. Imagine what would be happening with the local people from a cyber attack perspective. It is real. I do a lot of work with certain agencies. As we speak, there are at least 5-6 companies that I know of who are undergoing either a data breach attack or a ransomware attack. If it's a global organization, they will pay in bitcoins if they have no choice. But in India, bitcoins is not a legal tender. How will you pay? As CIOs, as people who will head technology, you will have to understand how will you negotiate, who will negotiate. Will you go to dark web and negotiate? How do you go to dark web? These are pertinent questions with the advent and the change that is happening from a AI perspective. You will have to have answers of. How many of you have taken cyber insurance for your own organizations or are aware of cyber insurance? Thank you, sir. Have you read the entire cyber insurance document? Perfect. It's like buying a builder, it's like buying a house. It is heavily in favor of the builder. Similarly, how many people can actually understand what does cyber insurance mean, what is the coverage, etc., etc. Very, very pivotal. Obviously, when you talk about AI, innovations are everywhere. You look at the time to develop a drug and do the entire testing. If it was maybe 2 years, it shrunk down to few days, right? If you look at pharma industry, healthcare, innovation, manufacturing, AI will rule the roost. There are a lot of government initiatives that the government of India is also doing. I think we are no longer laggards in terms of technology. We are probably at the forefront of what's happening, which is leading to a lot of GCCs, the global capability centers, setting up their center of excellence from an AI perspective in India. For one of the largest aircraft manufacturing organizations, one of the largest aircraft manufacturing organizations, almost 80% of their autopilot software, 80% of their autopilot software is being written using AI in Bangalore, in India. that is the strength that these GCCs and AI have a capability from an India perspective to take us to the next level, or the Viksit Bharat that our Prime Minister, Honorable Prime Minister keeps talking about. I think that's a huge window of opportunity that all of you sitting here can provide to the country also. We are at a very unique tipping point. All of this industry, for example, started as a time when cost arbitrage was the reason people used to come to India. Last 5-6 years, I don't think so that is the case. We are probably the biggest technology arbitrage country today. If I leave out few countries like Estonia, etc., in Europe, I don't think so the entire world is at the tipping point the way we are. We have a unique advantage for our economy using AI. It's upon us on how do we take it forward. And with this, my second last slide, I think the CIO role, it's no longer a CIO role, you can call it CDO, CTO, CMO, all mixed together. You are at the forefront. Every function in the organization has to talk to a CIO today. Otherwise, that function cannot exist. Even procurement, your entire contracts, automation, everything is being done by a CIO. But obviously, there are tailwinds, there are regulatory pressures, there is cyber security issues to be dealt with. We still don't have a AI regulatory framework which EU has or some other countries have started developing. Which brings me to the last slide, is looking at all of this and looking what the challenges that we face uniquely as a country. I think it is the entire mindset of a CIO is changing. Whether you talk about, being with the seat of the table, there's a huge talent war. I'll be surprised if anybody says he's not facing a talent war today. Hiring right skilled people is probably the second biggest challenge that everybody faces today, to adapting to this entirely rapidly changing world, whether it's the social political situation or the technology issues that we are facing. With that, I think you all deserve a huge round of applause once again. Thank you so much, sir, for giving me this opportunity. Thank you.